Olga.
Hey guys,
Audio now unmuted.
can you hear me?
In Florida.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
What's the temperature down there?
Right now I think it's 78.
Beautiful.
I think, I don't know. I worked all day. My wife and my grandkids went out on an airboat today, so
Oh, oh, and I would say it's 40, right?
somebody's got to have a good time, right?
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. This is the open space meeting for January 14th, 2026. This is the first meeting of the year. As a reminder to our members and anyone in the public who is in person or on Zoom, we will from now on be meeting on the second Wednesday of each month. Official time for start will still be the same at 5:45. Our meeting place is going to be at Lower Town Hall. If we could all please rise first for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And as always, we will go around and do the introductions of the committee members. My name is Jonathan Gale. I'm the chairperson of the Open Space Committee. We will go to Glenn.
My name is Glenn Cabbage. I'm actually the most recent member.
I am
Leonard.
Danica. Oh, sorry.
Good evening, Leonard Hull, member.
And Danica.
Hi, Danica Belknap, clerk.
Okay, thank you very much. We are going to have a relatively focused meeting tonight. We have a few agenda items that I think are going to be potentially quite lengthy, so we have a relatively short agenda overall. Danica, if you want to share with me, as you always do, the agenda items, we'll go through them as we go.
Next is the next meeting date on February 11th.
So, Danica, you had sent me an email saying that you were going to be away or not available for the first 2 weeks in February.
Right.
So then the question is, knowing that Danica will not be here, do we want to meet on the 11th? Do we want to postpone till March? Or do we want to try and go for one of the other Wednesdays in February, which would mix things up? I say that for a couple of reasons. One is Danica is our Zoom guru and takes care of Zoom and all of the other things that she does. Thank you very much, by the way, for always doing everything. But having said that, do we want to meet in February, or after tonight, do we want to hold off until March? That's a long way off, considering we're talking about wanting to do a few things coming up in the spring. We could still meet.
Sorry, Jonathan, can I interrupt you? We have someone in the waiting room. I'm just going to admit them.
Sure.
Just FYI.
Jonathan, if I could suggest, I agree with you on that being quite a while to wait. I'd see no reason not to maybe meet on the 18th or something like that in February, if that works for people.
We have, if the room is available, we can meet on the 18th. I'm okay with that. And if it's not available for that 1 month, I can find out from Leanne when it is otherwise available. Danica, when are you back as of?
Sorry, it's actually that week I'm not. It's the 11th and the 18th. I am not available. I said first 2 weeks. It's actually the second and the third week.
Okay.
So I can't do the 11th or the 18th. I could do the 4th or the 25th.
Okay.
Could we meet on the 4th?
Assuming there's nothing going on and there's no conflict, and assuming I just want to I would confirm also that right now this Zoom address is assigned to us for the entire year. So I would just want to make sure there's no conflict with the Zoom address, and also that there's no conflict with the room. If that's the case, I would entertain a motion to meet on the 4th at 5:45 Wednesday. That would be the first Wednesday in February, only for the month of February.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Since I'm on Zoom, we have to do this by roll call. Glenn,
Yay?
Danica,
Aye.
Leonard,
Aye.
and Jonathan is an aye. So as of now, I will clarify this tomorrow and send an email out to everyone, whether we're on the 4th. If not, I'm going to assume with all of you that it's okay for me to go back and forth with all of us by email, simply to change a meeting date. We're not going to vote on anything. We're just going to potentially change a meeting date. So that's it.
That's good. Okay, next agenda item is chairman's address.
So, first things first, Glenn, I had a conversation with Kevin Smith Jr., and Kevin asked me to extend an apology on his behalf for not reaching out to you yet. He's been tied up in a number of other things, both professionally and personally, and asked me just to let you know that he apologized for not reaching out, and he will try to reach out to you by the end of this week or early next. And he said, if he doesn't, please reach out to him with a reminder to connect with you. And this would be for the townwide cleanup.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. I have spoken briefly to Dan Higgins, and Dan, as you all know, is interested in land trust as well, which is something that we've all talked about really beginning to start to pursue. Dan would like to meet with us to talk about that more extensively. So we had talked about inviting him to a meeting. I would like to invite him to our February 4th meeting so that we can talk about a land conservation trust with him. As you all know, he is on other committees in town that would be directly related. And I think that he has some other insight that he would like to share on ways that we can proceed as well. So if no one has any objection, I'm going to plan on inviting him to our meeting on February 4th. Any thoughts?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Other than that, I don't have anything. Again, we were in the holiday period, so there wasn't much of, there weren't really many other things that were happening for the month. So that's really all I have right now. What we'll do is go through the things that we're going through today, and hopefully by the time we're done today, if we're able to vote, then we can take the items that we have in front of the Board of Selectmen at their next meeting or one of their next two meetings for approval. That's it.
Okay, next item is public input. We do have two members of the public here. One is on Zoom, one is in person.
So we'll start with the in-person person, see if he has any input as of yet. Ken, is there anything you'd like to say or ask before we dive into our main body of our agenda?
So thank you, John. My full intention tonight was to listen more and say less as an appropriate way to introduce myself to the committee.
Everyone go into next.
Looking very much to a future of involvement here. I don't have any questions, and that would probably be a product of the fact that I don't have a great grasp of exactly what this committee is doing currently, but it looks like it's something I can pick up on with the materials I've been provided tonight.
Sounds great. Thank you. And I think Mark said he had nothing to add, no questions
That's correct.
at this time. At least my computer talks to me and tells, can you hear my computer when it talks?
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Now you know what synthesized speech sounds like for a person who's visually impaired. I can change the voices, but I could put a headphone on, but it's easier without it right now. So I apologize for that.
Don't worry.
Okay, so we'll start with our main body of our agenda. Danica?
Okay, old business. First is discuss, review, act, open space extension and final approval.
So I know we all have had a copy of this. I don't know, I'll ask Dan if you know if there have been, and this is for the open space plan, if there have been any updates since our last meeting. As we all know, Serpent was going back and forth with a couple of people in town, Nancy Gallard, and also Pat Gales with regard to some history that was necessary. And I've seen the emails going back and forth between them flowing. I don't know, Danica, if you have any more updates on that. If not, I think we can really start to dive into this and review it and see where we're at.
Yeah, I don't have anything additional to add. As far as I know, there's not anything that we're like waiting on that's delaying things on our end. Just our, like as the Open Space Committee, our task for this evening is just to review the action plan and provide input there, so.
So has everybody read it? And does anybody have any thoughts on the action plan or?
I was curious, and not to suggest that I even have any edits to make or to request, but is this an opportunity where we could suggest something? Is that within the scope of what we're doing?
For the most part, this plan is completed.
Okay.
If there's something that you would like to suggest that may be relevant to put in or to make a change to, we can discuss it. And if necessary, we can offer a change. I would ask Danica to be our voice on that part of it to some extent, because this is a Serpent project as well. Danica can probably give us some input as to what we can and can't do there. But yes, if you have a thought, let's hear it.
I actually don't. I read it thoroughly. I made a number of notes. I really didn't have anything that I wanted to suggest we change. I was really just curious to what degree we had that sort of influence or input.
We do
What
have-
SERP,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say what SERP had specifically had asked us to do, so we're looking at this document, it's like a table of actions with goals. Do you have that?
I think I do, yeah.
Yeah, everyone has that.
I don't know if it's in what was, oh wait, no, I don't have the right thing. It might be in what,
Is it this, by chance?
it's not that. Yes,
Okay.
that's it.
There were a couple of questions about the geo map. I know that.
Yeah, so that's for the inventory, though I guess there are two things that Serped needs our input on. So one is the action plan, which is this table, and the other one is the open space lands in town. So what we've been asked to do is in the table to weigh in on the priority and review the implementation timeline. So I as I was looking through this, I made suggestions. So Lauren, the person at Serpent who did this, she pretty much took from our open space plan. It was not organized in this table in the previous version, but it does. This table is like a required template from the state. So the previous plan had, or I should say the current version of the existing plan had just a list of actions, and Lauren organized them under these goals for the plan. So I had a few suggestions that I noticed that I thought maybe should go under a different goal. And then I also had some notes on updates to the implementation timeline. So I don't know if you want to, how in depth you want to go through that stuff, Jonathan?
Well, I think our goal tonight was to get into it. So let's go
Yeah.
for it. Let's do it.
Okay, so maybe we just start with goal one, let's go goal by goal.
Absolutely.
Well, we should probably go action by action. So the first action is develop trail connections throughout town in order to improve public safety and accessibility to town assets and facilities. My recommendation was going to be to move that to goal 2, which is to work with the Trails Committee to develop new greenways and trail connections, because it's related to trails.
Yeah, that's what I had too. Unfortunately, I can't put it on my phone, or you'll have to listen to that too.
Yeah.
But that's what I had too, is the same thing.
Okay. And then we should decide on priority. So maybe for those of us who did look at it, I kind of put my priorities, maybe we could just share what we each put and see if we agree.
Go ahead. I'll try to do mine at the same time, but I may have to go ahead. You go first.
I said high for that. High priority.
My concern about making it a high priority is the fact that we haven't had many discussions with the Trails Committee or Recreation in particular. I think I see the importance of community education and letting the town know what we are about and what we're trying to accomplish is a higher priority. At this,
So,
at
yeah,
this-
that's a great point, actually. And I did make a note. So, goal 2, which is specifically about trails, I had made a note that maybe we should, we should definitely consult the Trails Committee, but maybe like let them decide there. So, maybe what would be more appropriate is if we only prioritize the ones that are like within the responsibility of this committee. Is that what you're saying?
yes,
Lynn?
yes, at this,
I think we should still try to prioritize them all from our perspective. I don't think that doesn't hurt because I think we want to move this process along. We don't want to delay it. I will
Well-
tell you for trails, for example, I gave it a moderate grade or a moderate goal. And the reason I did that was somewhat similarly to what you said, Mr. Hull, but also because I want to be able to explore with the Trails Committee and bring in Parks and Rec to it as well. I think it's a combination of all three because I think we also want to be able not just look at what's available and how we would connect the spaces, but how we would do that using grants and other processes to do it. And whether they're state grants, federal grants, grants from the district commission, things like that as well. So I don't give it a high priority, but I do put it in the moderate range.
That's fair to me. I put high question mark. I'm not committed to that.
What exactly is meant by connections, trail connections? Connecting the trails to what exactly?
To
To each other, I think.
to each other, so that
Like,
A
yeah.
network of sort of
exactly.
one expansive trail that can be.
yeah, so we have wetlands, for example. If you look at some of the areas, I'll use an example, the areas of the lands behind where Alice's restaurant. And you have that network of trails there, but then you have other trails in other places that are not interconnected to that. And one of the things that the town has been involved in to some extent is extending bicycle paths, as an example. Bicycle paths, of course, from north to south, from the Taunton border to the Somerset border. And those bicycle trails or bicycle paths, which would be paved, would have linkage with other, walking trails and walking paths through the wetlands and through some of the wooded areas along the river. So that's an example of the connection. And then you have other parts of town as well, where there are trails in other places that might end at a piece of somebody's property or at a property line. And is there a way to circumvent that and go around property lines using public land to connect some of those trails so that you can make a trail, for example, from 0.7 miles to maybe 1.4, 1.5, things like that, with egress and entrance and exit on both ends.
Would some or a lot of this involve having to essentially create the connections over roads and put signs up to indicate that, or?
It would involve different things. It could involve signage on roads. It could involve arrows. It could involve clearing what would be trails or what were maybe at one time old unused trails and then marking them. There's a lot of different components to it. Mapping it as well. So this is where we would work with Trails Committee and identify for example, what's the total they have do they have 6.5 miles of trails in town right now? What's their goal? What are they looking at to increase it to, or what's their eye on areas they want to open up through the open space land that we have now? Or eventually, if we had land trust, for example, then some of this could come into the land trust as well. We've talked about the land usage, if you have land trust and how it would be used and for what purpose, recreation, hunting, trails, fishing, etc. So it encompasses all of this into that in the end. I don't think it's a lot to do, and it's a lot of committees to bring involved into the whole process, which is why I gave it a moderate grade at this point, because I think it's a long-term project that's going to be a couple of years at least in the making.
I certainly like the idea of it. Not really knowing where many of the trails are or what the gap is between them. I'd be concerned that there could be either a lot of expense or, a lot that needs to be done to do it. But where it's practical, it sounds like a great idea for sure.
Well, I think that's where part of putting this together, and Danica can go back and address this a little bit. One of the things we want to do with ultimately putting this plan together and submitting it is that down the road, it allows us to potentially use this plan to look for grants, for grant submission for different things. So we may look for a grant for an engineering study along with Trails Committee, along with Parks and Rec, along with planning, along with whomever. If we needed to, for example, it allows us to, maybe Danica, you could address the grant side of this a little bit better than I am right now, and how this affects our ability to get grants.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the purposes of having this plan and keeping it current and up to date is that it unlocks grant funding from the State Division of Conservation Services. So just having this approved plan makes towns eligible for grants that can help fund some of the actions in here.
Gotcha.
The other thing too is like priority doesn't necessarily mean that it's what's going to be implemented first. Like all of this is assuming that it's pending grant funding. So that's why the table has like a potential funding sources column. It also has an implementation timeline column. So something might be like really high priority, but maybe it's not super feasible because it's going to be super costly or whatever reason. So like the implementation timeline might be more delayed, even though it's like a higher priority. Like once the opportunity presents itself, it would be a high priority to undertake. The reason why for something like this, I would consider this high priority to think about as opportunities arise. Like whenever, like, say, sidewalks are being installed or like a new trail or a new park is opening, like, I just want to see more mindful decisions being made about like how they fit into the bigger picture. So like, I'm not saying that like by high priority, I think right now we should like be putting in all these trail connections. It's more like, I think it's a high priority that as a new trail gets put in, that whoever's doing the planning of that is like being mindful of other trails nearby and like thoughtfully trying to connect them.
Yeah. No, I agree
think
with
that's
you.
more where I come from, which is like, again, it's harder to convey that in like this one sentence action, but that was my thought process.
I kind of consider this, Glenn, like our wish list. Lousy way.
Yeah.
To
I
put it.
like it. I think it would have some nice benefits, and I like that idea of being mindful as we either acquire land or build new trails, what have you. Consider the possibility of linking to existing trails.
So with this particular item, is our consensus to give it a high or a moderate?
Moderate.
Okay.
Glenn?
I'm comfortable with moderate. As long as it's something that kind of, like Danica said, is in the back of our mind as we make other decisions. I think it makes great sense.
I'm gonna suggest as well moderate. I know Danica would like high, and I don't disagree with you in many respects, but I also think, I'm hoping that Trails Committee is in a little flux right now, I think, in trying to get their feet back on the ground. I know that Parks and Rec would like to look at some things as well. So my feeling is to give it a a level of moderate right now, but my separate thought is that it's probably going to end up being something that's a high priority in the end. Which I would support that. I just don't know that I would want to do that right now. So should we conclude that this will be moderate for now? Are we all in agreement?
I agree.
Danica, you may not be. That's okay. I know that.
No, I that's fine with me. I agree with
John,
that.
I totally agree with you, especially what you just said about park and rec and trails. Obviously, we can revisit this if trails and park and rec determine that it is a priority with them.
Yeah, I think we could,
understand what I'm saying?
yeah, we could defer to them. Like our recommendation is moderate, but if they come back and say it's higher priority from them, then
Then we're,
that
then
could be
it's,
amended.
yeah, then it's gonna bump up, but at least we have it submitted.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, I just
Okay.
want to make a note. I have, so the electronic version of this table, I'm editing and making notes as we go along. And then I will send this back to Serped to accept. So rather than voting on every single item and every decision, can we just continue chatting? I'll
Yes.
track our decisions and then we can vote to like do one vote at the end.
I'm perfectly fine with that. Yes.
Okay. All right, so the next action is develop community education programs and materials to promote conservation and environmental awareness as well as opportunities for stewardship.
For me, that's high.
for me, that's also high.
I put high as well.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's high.
All right, great.
It's actually,
I think,
and I
you
would
know-
also suggest we include, maybe in an ancillary way, our involvement in these things,
Yeah.
let people know about this committee.
We are, yeah, so in the responsible parties, we are listed as a responsible party.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So, and Glenn, just to follow up with that last comment you just made, I just, the other day, got the email that I get every year from Leanne. As you know, the town puts out a book every year with the town's reports. So what I'll be doing is taking the information that we put together here as well. When I put together the town report for that thick book for open space, and I submit this to Leanne, that will be in there as well, so that, and that goes to every household in town. So they're going to see our priorities to some extent in that book also, and they'll understand that's another way of getting out there what we're doing and what we're working on.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah, that's great. All right, next one.
Yes.
Develop a capital improvement plan for parks and recreation.
Is that our responsibility?
I think it's the rec committees, Parks and Rec. I'm
It
not
goes to-
super clear on what that would entail, yeah.
That's really for Parks and Rec. That encompasses a number of things. So, capital improvement could be to expand each of the parks or put new equipment to each of the parks, or how to reutilize the space. And an example of that would be right at Town Hall where you are, the whole playground and the track area and the infield area. And I think there are other committees that are involved in that too, to some extent. So, for example, on the CPC committee, which I'm on, we have a proposal from the Lions Club to redo some of the walling and some of the seating around the track area. Kevin and I have already talked about on a vision that we have, with me as the ADA, through ADA, and he as Parks and Rec, at looking at grants down the road for all of that, which would be a massive undertaking project and really a 5-year capital plan. But that could also extend to other areas. I think this is important, but because my feeling is because there are other committees that are also going to be involved in this different ways, more directly in the capital side of it, I would give it a low priority. I don't think that we're in a position as our committee to give it I think we've got other things we want to focus on. We want to focus on the things that the 2 things we've already talked about here, plus the land trust development, things like that, which are going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time. So personally, I would give it a low priority. I'd like to, in my head, it's high, but in reality, I think it's low.
I agree with John.
I agree.
Sure. So, sorry, you said low priority?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
What do you,
That's
Danica,
helpful.
Danica, what do you think?
That's fine. I feel like it's hard for us to say because it's really the Parks and Rec, it's their responsibility, so I would defer to them. But it sounds like it just sounds like a big thing to undertake that would be like as resources allow. Like I can't imagine it's higher priority than the other maintenance needs and things going on in town.
No. And that's more like a long-term capital project, which we're not designed to fund or spearhead at this for something like that directly. Input, yes. Utilization, yes. And support, yes.
So the next item is develop a Parks and Recreation master plan. Do you know what the difference would be
That
between?
hasn't been, that hasn't been developed yet. And the master plan will be a long-term capital project as well in terms of, because as an example, if you look at North Dayton Playground, you also have a baseball field there. So a master plan would be what do you have to do for improvements to maintain it? Maybe change equipment, change lighting. Is there any way to expand it in a neighborhood like that or some of the other parks? What can be done? Or how can parks, again, a master plan eventually could be tying it back into our first item, which would be to tie into trails. But I think for our purposes, I hate to be always the first one giving a suggestion because I feel like I'm putting it in everybody's head, but I would say that for us, that's probably low.
Okay.
I would agree.
Okay, so for both of those two items, I'll put low priority.
Yes.
Okay, the
Somebody else has to go first on this one.
And the next item is develop the North Dayton playground area, improving and adding an additional playground. Now, I think this is an easy one because hasn't that already been done?
Yeah, that's not clear to me. We've already done that in a way by renewing the playground and moving it. If I haven't been here that long, Glenn, you haven't been here that long. Ken, you're in the audience and you have been here for a longer time, and so has Leonard. But that playground was moved when it was rebuilt 2 years ago. It was actually moved. So in my opinion, that's been done. If I'm missing something, somebody can point it out to me.
I think so. Just to point out, this draft plan was drafted in 2021. So like
Yeah,
this action plan covers the years 2021 to 2031.
Yeah,
So
and
I think it's likely, like this was recommended before that work was done. And you're
Exactly.
saying it happened 2 years ago?
Yes, so
Was it in
had-
like 2024 or
Yes,
2023?
23.
23? Okay. I'm going to note that because my other comment on that one was the implementation timeline here. Again, this is what Lauren at SERP had drafted. So not knowing that this has already been done, she had put 8 to 10 years, but I'm going to change that to years.
That was 23
2 to
slash
3.
20. Yeah, 23
Yeah.
slash fall of 23 to spring of 24.
Okay, so I'll put years 2 to 3 because that's when it was actually completed.
Does
Okay,
anyone know offhand what street this might be off of or accessible?
School Street. It's off of School Street.
School Street.
And then, I don't know, should we make that high priority?
It was done, so I'd probably give it a
Right?
high.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
was
what
already
I'm,
done.
yeah. Okay. Everyone agreement?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is develop and install uniform wayfinding signage for all town-owned properties.
So that's a moderate, and that's in process. And I'm going to give you an example of what wayfinding would be for that. As some of you may have noticed in the past couple of years, the town has put up signs for flood zones with directions of where to go if you were driving and there's a flood zone in town. So there are signs in different places that with arrows that tell you go this way, but don't go that way. And that's part of what that wayfinding process means, or for it used for, think of it as for evacuations, things like that. So that's in the process of being done. Mr. Hull, maybe you can address some of that because that was starting to happen when you were a member of the Board of Selectmen.
One of the biggest problems that they're having, slowing down the progress, is funding. Signs cost money. So I think if there was anyone who could help with grant writing, that might help expedite the process.
So where would we put this in the level of what? I have my own thought, but maybe somebody else has one first.
I'll take a stab at this one. I would say signage would be a high priority. I think it indirectly leads to other things like community education, awareness, things like that. It would certainly assist me personally as a relatively newcomer to Dayton, knowing where a lot of these resources and locations are at.
I would agree with Glenn.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hull, I didn't hear you.
I would agree with Glenn. I would also like to add that I believe open space has or will have some talented people who could be of great assistance in of getting the funds to help that happen.
I also think it's a high priority because the town has had floods before. And inevitably it's going to happen again, or there'll have to be an evacuation for some reason again. And things like that signage and that wayfinding system, which would also be available, eventually through the mobile phone process, et cetera, it's not just for residents, it's also for first responders. And part of that whole process, for example, is identifying neighborhoods where you have seniors or people with disability for evacuation processes with signage on those, in those neighborhoods that indicate where those people live. And part of that, some of this is behind the scenes as well, so that the fire department and the police department will know they need to evacuate. I'll use me, Jonathan Gale from 22 Waterford Circle, because he's blind and he can't drive and there'd be an emergency reason to have to evacuate. Probably not a flood where I live, but there could be something else. And they know I don't drive. So they would have that on various lists. Those are things that I'm actually actively working on with fire and police to work, putting together a list of how to identify people who are seniors or people with disabilities. Sorry, I have a kid screaming in the background. Must have been something exciting.
We can't hear him.
Okay. So I would say, I would agree, this is a high priority.
I think that this action also refers more specifically to signs for public town-owned parks, like that type of wayfinding. So I agree 100% with everything that's been said, but I think the intent more now is on that type of wayfinding, like how to find parks and knowing where people can go hiking, for example. So that being said, I still think it's important, and maybe if this other larger wayfinding effort is underway, maybe we could somehow link them together and do them together. But I'm just not sure that the intent with this one is totally in line with the project you were describing, Jonathan.
I'm not clear either. I hear what you're saying. I'm not clear either. If that were the case, then I would almost say that this should be lumped into our other category for trails and so forth. But even to me, even if it's wayfinding to find our public spaces in town, whether it's trails or parks, things like that, I still think, because we represent, to me, open space, that's still a high priority.
Okay.
Thoughts?
Okay with putting it high priority.
Well, I want to, I don't know if others agree with that or not. I don't want to lead people on.
John, I agree with you on that.
I gotta admit, I got a little lost with the connection you were making to, elderly and disabled and so forth, in terms of what I was seeing this as. I think they're both important, but I would suggest they're different things.
Could be that it could be looked at different perspectives. But if we look at it from the recreational perspective that Danica's floating out there, do you consider it a high priority, a moderate, low?
I do. I do consider it high. Using myself as an example, I would say simply driving by something, seeing a sign, is my best bet for learning that it even existed. I'm probably not going to be looking for a list of parks or trails or things like that online or elsewhere. Just kind of stumbling upon it, driving past it or what have you would be, I think, beneficial, serendipitous, and probably my best bet for finding.
So it sounds like the overall consensus is high.
Yep. Okay, the next one is promote community cleanups in our neighborhoods, parks, and recreation facilities.
I see that as a high priority, not only to help beautify the town, but also to get the word out about open space of who we are and what we're about.
I agree.
Definitely agree. Yeah.
4-0.
All right, the next one is find a permanent office/space for the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Low.
I put a big question mark for this one. I have no idea, has that been done? Does that need to be done?
If I were sarcastic, I would say Kevin already has a shed. But I don't think that that's our responsibility
Yeah.
Agreed.
at all. I would say low, but that's my opinion.
Well, I mean, thinking about it from his viewpoint, what is the need for an office? Maybe to us, it doesn't really impact us, but if we think about how it impacts him and his committee.
I think what he would tell you, I can't speak for him, but I'm going to try and go into his head, which is very hard if we know Kevin. I think he would tell you that he would want more space for his equipment and things that he needs to service the playgrounds. But in terms of, quote, office space, unquote, I think his office space for the way he would do things and operate on a regular basis is right now out of his home on a voluntary basis, which is what he does. But I think he would need more, he would want more space to have for equipment and maintenance and so forth.
Does the town provide space and all the
The
equipment?
town provides
that
some
he needs for
storage
maintenance?
space.
Yeah.
Yeah, some storage, some place for storage of equipment and resources.
Okay.
But he can always use more, and it's often full at different times depending upon what's in their time of year.
Mr. Gale,
Yes, sir.
this topic is a very hot political issue in the town of Dayton.
I understand.
There are a couple groups, historical commission and park and rec, that both could use office space. There is a potential building. However, there are many people who have many different opinions as to who should go in the old library. So I don't know if we should really get into it.
I know what you're saying, and I think any usage for that building, the old library space, is going to be way down the road. Because there's a lot that has to be done before that building can be reconstituted to be used.
Well, that's where teamwork would be huge, providing resources from various departments or committees that would eventually use that room.
I don't disagree, but that also will constitute a significant capital expense that right now the town doesn't have. And I'm putting on another hat when I say that. It was closed for a reason. Let's put it that way. And it's going to require a significant layout of several $100,000 to bring that building up to standard to do certain things with it now as it is. So I think from Mr. Smith's perspective, since we're talking about Parks and Rec at least, yes, he would love to have some office space. I think every committee would love to have some office space, or every commission.
Yes.
But I think from his perspective, what's more important right now is storage space. So
Would we make this a low priority from,
I'm suggesting low. If things change, it's gonna change on the list anyway. But I don't know that we would directly be involved in that ourselves too. This is, Kevin's not here for me to ask. I will let him know what we're thinking. And if there's any thought process changing, I can let you all know, but I don't think that there will be.
That sounds good to me. We can put low for now and just make a note that they should consult the Parks and Rec Commission for that. Okay.
Yep.
Next item is implement the recommendations of the ADA transition plan.
So this one I will address. I'm going to give this moderate. This is actually moderate/high. And what I mean by that is the ADA transition plan was first put together. The engineering study was in 2019. The actual plan was in 2021. We've implemented a number of things in the plan already. And an example of that is making several of our parks ADA accessible with the ramps, the picnic tables, the walkways that we have in the ramp, that long walkway in front of Town Hall, which some people love and other people don't like, inside Town Hall, and with the ADA lavatories now, and the lowering of the windows for servicing. Same thing, Old Town Hall, we have the ramp that goes to the stairs. We have the side entrance, things like that we didn't have before. When I say stairs, I mean stairs to the stage, lavatories downstairs. We've put in the past 5.5 years, probably about $700,000 in grants that I've obtained into making our town much more accessible. Now, having said that, there's a lot of things on that list we haven't done yet. But most of the things, and including the library, which is now, as we all know, fully accessible as well. Having said that, there are a lot of things on the list of what we have to do that are still outstanding. But most of those things now are more administrative in nature. Town procedures, town policies, things like that, postings of types of things, grievance processes. Those are things that, as the ADA coordinator, I'm involved with separately with the town administrator and different departments. So I think I would give this a high/moderate because we've attacked quite a bit of it already.
Do you think a lot of what's already been done was accomplished within the past 5 years since
Yes.
this plan was established?
Yes. So for
So-
example, the new walkway,
Yeah.
and some of the other areas were built in 22, 23 because we had gotten a grant from the Mass Office on Disability for about $250,000.
Yeah.
So, and then we've continued it. So after 21,
Yeah, so it sounds like we've done a lot of the high priority ones. So this could be another one where we put high priority and pat ourselves on the back for already accomplishing one of our high priority actions.
yes, it's an ongoing high priority.
It is listed, the time frame on here is listed as ongoing.
Yep.
So given that, I say we put high priority.
I agree.
in light of the fact that ADA was a forgotten law until Mr. Gale came into the town of Dayton, I would say this should be a high priority, if nothing more, to keep reminding people of how important it is.
Well, I think as in a separate aside to that, and I'll take this a step further, why it continues to be a high priority. We're looking as we know, it's not directly related to open space again, but as we know, we're looking at whether or not we need to build a new elementary school or revitalize the one that we currently have. And as an example, with the ADA side of it, I'm going to be pretty heavily involved in that starting in a couple of weeks, because we have to look at whether the current facility can be made ADA accessible, or it does require a new building to help make it ADA accessible. And either way, what needs to be done. So that's just an example of another example going forward of what we're doing. So ADA, especially in today's environment, and I think from the point of view of the Commonwealth and being able to obtain grants and so forth, for anything from sidewalks to walkways, parks, whatever, the state places a high value, literally, on ADA compliance these days for grant purposes. So yes, I think we should definitely keep this as a high priority.
High priority it is. Can we move to the next?
Mhm.
Develop a community park in West Dayton.
I have no comment.
Regarding that, I'd like to see another group, responsible party added to that list. And that would be the planning board. And maybe even the ZBA. Because one of the things, and I see them do this in Taunton a lot, is when you're negotiating with developers, putting a little bit of heat on them to develop that park. There was a development in the town, I forget the name of it, that I believe it was the planning board or the ZBA able to put enough pressure on the developer to build a playground. So I see no reason why that sort of pressure couldn't be put upon a developer to help us develop a community park.
So, Mr. Hall, to answer what you're potentially, excuse me, alluding to a little bit, for example, there is a project through the ZBA and planning, which is tied up in the courts right now, which is Strawberry Fields. That's a 40B development process. And as a member of the 40B committee, which was, but now also in my hat as a member of the zoning board, one of the things that we had worked out with that developer was that if and when that project is built, the developer will set aside $25,000 for us to either add to or build a new playground, or help build a new playground somewhere in town. So, ultimately that would be the decision probably of planning. It may have to be, some area might have to be rezoned. That's possible, correct? Depending upon where it would be. But that would be, that's the seed cash, if you will, for a project down the road, assuming that Strawberry Fields is eventually built or being built. But that's years down the road till we get to that point of $25,000, probably at least 10. And that could be renegotiated. So
That doesn't say there won't be other developers. coming in with
exactly.
projects.
And you're absolutely right. And there will be. And, that goes to the other plan that we're going to be talking about too, which is smaller footprints for 40B development or other types of housing development. So, when we look at the zoning bylaw change, there's things in there that relate to that could be affected by exactly what we're looking at right here. So I would give it, well, what does somebody else think? I don't want to always say what I think.
How does Mr. Smith feel about this?
I don't know that he has it right now on his radar for another playground.
This is something I would be interested to hear what the public's feedback is. We still plan to have a public meeting to present this draft action plan.
Yes.
I don't really know enough about what's available in West
Yep.
Dayton and what the need is. So that's something, like, I would want to hear more from the public and residents who live in that area.
Are
I
there,
think,
are there locations that have been proposed for this?
no. To my knowledge, anyway, no.
So
Again,
still
Mr. Hull,
pretty
you may have other
hypothetical.
ideas as a member, former member of the Board of Selectmen and your other things in town, but I don't know that there's been ever anything proposed.
No, but there's some farmland over that way that has potential.
And that
Potential for a fire
potentially,
station, potential for development.
right, and that, some of that could eventually come under land trust.
Right. There is a
So-
piece of land there that an owner is interested in a land trust.
So that's down the road. But Danica, I agree with you. I think for all, to give it a grade, if you will, I would say low priority for now, but I also think when we have our public meeting to get input, you know, we may get feedback that requires we change it, but right now I would say low.
I'm okay with that. Okay, the next one is develop a town trail / canoe / open space guide, physical and web-based.
I would lump that back where we started. That was kind of in the beginning of our conversation as to where things should go. I
Well,
love the
I think-
idea.
I
Go
think
ahead.
this is more similar to the wayfinding one. This is like, this is a guide for the public to understand where in town these open spaces are, I think,
Yeah, where you can put in a canoe, where you can do other things.
right?
Yes, I would agree.
I would place that high. I think that would have a lot of impact, a lot of benefits. Shouldn't be terribly difficult or expensive, I would think.
I would think so too, and I feel like this is something that we could easily accomplish ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, we could talk to the trails and we could talk to Parks and Rec and just create a web page on the website.
Sure.
Like, it seems like a pretty
Yeah.
light lift.
Yeah, that's true. You know, that's true. We could create a map, a geo map in town that actually shows where these things are.
Yeah.
I
would say
agree.
high for that.
Okay,
I could see that benefiting us, certainly benefit me as a member, for sure. Being able to see often what we're talking about, different places that maybe I'm not familiar with.
okay,
So should I put high for that one?
yes.
Okay, that's it for that goal. We can move on to goal 2, but I also just wanted to note the time. It's 6:45 and we still have other items on the agenda we haven't gotten to. So do we want to, like, we could keep going, but how much longer? Like, I don't think we're going to have time to do all. We're less than a third of the way through. So
Well, we can, I mean, if you would all like, I can entertain a motion to continue this discussion until our next meeting on February 4th, and we can continue from there. And then in the meantime, the next item I believe we have is the zoning bylaw. And if we think we can do that in 15 or 20 minutes, unless somebody has significant conversation or change that they want to discuss, I would suggest that. Any thoughts?
I wouldn't mind a little extra time to kind of go over these. I didn't list them as priority. It didn't list priorities myself. I went through a lot of the documentation and I read this, but I failed to actually prioritize them. So
Okay,
I would make a motion that we do continue this conversation at our next meeting.
I'll second it. Leonard Hull will second.
any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do this by roll call. Danica,
aye.
Glenn,
Aye.
Len,
Aye.
and Jonathan is an aye. Jeremy? 1 second, I just have to tell my grandson something. Put that on, if you're putting that thing in the oven, put it on the cookie sheet, or actually put it on the pizza dish.
Yeah.
On the pizza. Sorry about that. Okay, so the next thing we have is the zoning bylaw.
Yes.
And with the zoning bylaw change, I think what I will say is before we touch on this, I think that Serpent has made an extremely good effort to elicit input and from every single committee and commission in town as many ways as possible. They've gone or attempted to go to every committee or commission in town. Some have responded and met with the staff at Serpent to hear about potential changes and get input and redlining to try and please everybody. Some have not responded. And I want to be clear about that. Some have had ample opportunity and haven't responded. We've had a public meeting as well at Old Town Hall back in November. We had several members of Serpent there to discuss different components. And we had what I would have hoped would have been a great turnout, but we had a fairly low turnout. And I say that because we all know that ultimately this is going to have to go to town meeting. It's a bylaw change. So we're going to have to prepare a warrant article for this. And I do foresee that there'll be certain people or certain committees in town who will stand up and challenge certain parts of this and say, we've never had input or opportunity. So I just want to be clear. And I think, at least from the perspective of the work that we've all done, we're quite clear, at least I'm clear, that there's been ample opportunity to receive input from different committees in town for these changes to be made as time has gone on. I don't know if any of you have any other thoughts on that. If not, then we can go right into it.
I think just whoever presents it to like at town meeting should just be upfront about that. And like we have dates where we could say this bylaw was discussed at these like publicly advertised, recorded, posted planning board meetings, whatever other committee meetings. And the public meeting that we hosted and advertised in November, like just cover our bases.
Yeah. I mean, if we really needed to, we could even give them a one-sheet printout of every single time committees have met, or there's been somebody, Serpent has approached a committee, or there's been something scheduled, just as a handout, as part of the informational packet or whatever. I agree with you. Yeah. And any one of us can do it. Doesn't have to be me as the chair, it can be anyone. Does anyone have any thoughts on any of this? I don't know how much time any of you have had to put into this. It's quite involved. It's quite extensive. If nobody has any thoughts yet, I'll start with a couple, which is, we had talked about, we had a percentage in there at one point for open space. And I think we had talked about maybe changing that figure. Does anybody remember that discussion?
Yes.
I think what we proposed differed with what maybe the planning board. I think there was a disagreement.
Yeah, I think
on the amount. Yeah,
did we have a higher figure? We had a higher number, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
I think so.
I think ours 50% or something.
That's on page 7, section 4400. I think what we recommended was 50%, and what wound up here is 20%, which I'm pretty sure is what the existing amount was.
Yeah. Did they leave it as 20%? I didn't
Yes.
remember if it was changed.
Yes.
I would like to see that changed to the 50%. The other side of that is that can make it more complex on how land is used. for if it's, for example, if it's
Yeah.
also going to invite housing and so forth, or, you
I
know,
think maybe how we got around that was, not got around it, but I think the compromise we made was that we could keep it at 20%, but also including a limit on how much open space, wetlands can be
Yes, yeah,
included in the
yeah.
open space. So if you go on the next page, section 4411, it limits. Oh, wait, sorry, no, that's not right.
I thought we did do that, though. We tried to separate out the wetland.
Yeah, I think that we included. Where's the wetlands?
I think we had actually said excluding wetland because we didn't want any of the wetland to be considered as part of the open space because
Right.
wetland is what it is.
So, yeah, I think that was kind of like the compromise that we made.
But currently, isn't wetlands partially included in open space?
Currently, I believe it is included.
Right,
We wanted to exclude it
all right.
because the wetlands are what they are. They're going to always be there.
Right.
I think it's not buildable. It's not space that's utilized. And we were looking at utilizing space. We were looking at the actual footprint of what would be utilized and how we could maintain enough of that open space so that what could be utilized wouldn't be 100% buildable.
See, the problem I have with the 20% rule is we later in the bylaw say at least 25% of that 20% shall be designated for usable, passive, and active recreation. Well, 20%, 25% of 20% is not a very big recreational area.
No. But it said at least, I mean, if we're changing this to 50%, and then we're still saying the 25% of that allows for more recreational space
Yes,
because we're expanding from 20 to 50. So, you know, if you had 100 square yards or 100 cubic yards of open space and you had 20% and 25% of that, you're only looking at 5 yards. But if
And
you're
also-
looking at 50 and then you're saying 25%, well, now you're going to 12 and a half. So in essence, what I'm saying is you're more than doubling your open recreational space by going to 50%.
I'd love to have a discussion with planning and or conservation about this.
You know, I think, Len, my feeling is that there's not time.
Okay,
I don't know if anybody else has any thought. But remember, we only have a couple more meetings. They've had plenty of opportunity to weigh in on this or to sit down with us as well. We've even invited them to sit down with
Yes.
us. And we haven't been taken up on it. The warrant articles are going to have to be in by mid-April, which means we're going
if
to have
we're
to.
gonna vote on this, I'm staying with the 50%.
Okay. Glenn, Danica, your thoughts?
I guess I agree. Like, and when we spoke to the planning board, they said that most of the developments that have happened to date, a lot of them have been larger than that minimum anyway. So like requiring 50%, requiring a higher amount doesn't seem like it would be like a hindrance to this. But I don't know, maybe we can like meet in the middle and go with like 30 or 40 or something. I don't know. Like I would like to see it higher, but I'm not necessarily committed to 50%.
I guess this goes to my earlier question, where, do we have the opportunity to make these changes, or is it too late?
No, it's not too late, because we're the ones making the changes. Other committees have had ample opportunity, Glenn, to give their input, not just to us, but to Serpent.
Gotcha.
And Serped is presenting like, so this draft we have is kind of like the final draft. It's still in draft form, but it does account for all of the feedback that we already received. And Serped is presenting it to the planning board in February, I believe, at one of their upcoming meetings. So I think like after that, I think we should consider it more or less final. Like if we have feedback, we can get to Serped before that meeting so that they can present it to the planning board, because they, at the end of the day, they're the ones that really have the authority on this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
we have the opportunity to fulfill a voice, a message that I think you've heard, and I certainly have heard loud and clear. This town is not looking to have a Forest Hills type project in its community. It is reluctant for any major development. This is an opportunity to control large developments, because we don't have hundreds of acres of land available to give them even an opportunity to do something if we have a 50% open space requirement. It would reduce the number of homes that would be built on that land, that parcel of land that was purchased by a developer.
well, I think there's two things to think about for that. I think there's first of all, I'm in favor of the 50% footprint. For and that would be, to be clear, that it's for not land that's what we were just talking about. I'm losing my train of thought here. I'm sorry.
Wetlands.
I hear kids in the background horsing around. But that's not wetlands. And I want to be clear that that 50% is for non-wetland space. The other thing that we talked about, and I think it's built in here, and I forget what section right this minute, where the footprint allows for different types of cluster building or cluster housing. So that we're already, Mr. Holt, to go with what you're talking about, this plan does include a structure that allows for smaller development footprints. I forget exactly where it's in. Again, I can't access it this minute. But that's already built in here too, so that we can do that, so that we can attract developers who want to build, on 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 acres, and maybe we'll build, a row house type of thing, or, I don't want to use the word duplex type of housing, but smaller footprints where they might build 12, 16, 18, 20 units in that small footprint and maintain that 50% open space and maybe not even be touching any wetland. Because we also recognize there has to be some room for development of growth here. But I think to some extent, you're right, we're trying to avoid is the large tracts.
These large tracts have a huge impacts on the tax rate and the need for services.
Yep.
I'm in favor of the 50%, and particularly if we're saying that is excluding or
Wetlands.
exclusive of wetlands. Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious, and this is really just a question I have. What is our interest in allowing the type of housing you were just describing there?
So the interest there is there's a couple of components to that. With that type of housing, we're trying to look at ways to preserve our open space land usage, but at the same time, be able to we still, by state statute and to some extent federal statute, but definitely with state statute, we're supposed to ultimately reach a goal of 10% affordable, quote unquote, housing in the town. Affordable housing can be through the 40B homeowner program. It could be through an expansion of the housing authority if they decided that they needed to build another unit for seniors, for example, somewhere in town. It could be, there are other formats too. But right now we're going backwards on that goal level. We're not going forward. So we were
Your battery is running low. Close button.
at roughly 5% a couple of years ago. Now we're getting down to the 4%, maybe to the high threes pretty soon, because we keep building these single family homes or smaller developments, or for example, Hunter's Hill, which is an over 55 community. That's not considered 40B type of housing or anything like that. You build 150 houses there, which they're in the process of doing, then you get overall, you're getting lower and lower on that 10% threshold. So the goal here is to provide cluster housing or different types of housing so that developers who build under the state guidelines can come in. Yes, they may build 1 or 2 bedroom units or things like that for seniors, persons with disability, low and moderate income residents to rent, or in some cases own. So you have Stony Ridge Estates where I live, you have the one next door, you have a couple of others where normally the zoning might have been, let's just say, for 1 acre. But the zoning variance there was for a ½ acre per unit. But in return, 25% of those homes built were for 40B. You wouldn't know which ones are 40B, but it allows those developers to come in and build more homes under the same size footprint that they would have had. And that's the short version of how it works.
I think that neighborhood, you know, having seen your neighborhood is quite nice, even with the, you know, supposedly reduced acreage, but
It's amazing.
yeah, it's a beautiful neighborhood. I'm just not sure how cluster housing would look in Dayton. It would
Well, I'm using
be
the
a
term
very
cluster,
stark change to anything that we have here traditionally.
and I'm using the term cluster, Glenn. It can take on different, it could be, you know, you could call it bungalows, you can call it small family ranch homes, you can call it whatever. It depends on what a developer offers for design. Remember, you know, the designs, whatever a developer wants to do, it still has to come in front of the planning board and the zoning board, et cetera, et cetera. And it still has to meet the contour and the specs of what the town allows or is willing to allow or grant a waiver for. But
Right.
I think we have to consider the fact that part of the process here is ways that we can allow for the continuation of building of different types of housing, but at the same time, potentially lowering the footprint of the large developers coming in. And if we're increasing the open space component from 20 to 50% for a large developer, that even if you looked at something like Mr. Hull was just talking about for Forest Hills, if this is the new bylaw change, for example, and Forest Hills were to come in, too late now, of course, then that would have meant that all of that space would have much more open space and there would have been fewer homes. Or they would have had to petition to build more homes in a smaller footprint, keeping the open space.
I'd like to just make a point too, that the type of density that this bylaw allows is similar to what already exists in town in like the North Dayton Village area by like between Spring Street, School Street, that area over there, which is where I live actually personally. But that like those lots are quarter-acre size lots, which would not be, they are pre-existing to the zoning we have today, and they would not be allowed under like the by right zoning we have today. But I believe, I'm having a hard time locating it in this bylaw right now, but I think the highest density that this bylaw would allow, well, already allows because it already exists, is on par with what is already existing in that neighborhood. So it's not like
You are correct.
crazy, like it wouldn't, I don't think it would substantially change the character of Dayton. It just offers more flexibility for developers to be able to build more types of housing that take up less space.
So are we okay with the 50% of open space excluding wetland?
Yeah, I'd make a motion, we make that change.
Second,
Any discussion?
Or really, the motion is that we're recommending that change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Hall,
aye.
Glenn,
Aye.
Danica,
Aye.
Jonathan, aye. Any other substantive?
Very low on the
Uh-oh.
Ooh. What happened to John?
He got booted.
He may have bumped something on his
Yeah,
computer.
we can give him a moment to see
I
if
have a
he.
feeling he was reaching down to shut off that voice or
Yeah.
and hit the wrong button.
What happens if we lose our chair?
Where
Where do we go from here?
The clerk becomes the chair.
Oh, no.
I second.
I'm only out for work.
He texted me. He's re-logging in on his phone.
Oh,
Maybe his computer died.
Hopefully not.
Does anybody have any pet projects they want to ramp through while he's not here?
I think putting together a guide on the website would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, I agree.
I would volunteer to help with that.
A general ballpark number of how many distinct trails, distinct parks we have in town? Because I honestly don't know.
I don't know either. Unfortunately, Jeff Cavallo was the chairman of that committee.
Huh?
And he did an incredible job. But he resigned, or I believe he left that committee, so.
Are they still active? What's going on with the Trails Committee?
I don't know. I heard John say that they're reorganizing, so
What committee was that?
trails,
Trails.
it's very important. There is a trail that, I know it runs to Fall River, I know it runs to Taunton. We're in the middle. Do you know where that trail begins?
Nothing towards Fall River.
I think it's the Taunton River
The
Trail.
130, that
Right.
starts on 138 there and then
Right.
proceeds down to the waterway. I've never actually been on it. Sad.
Now,
I think it's not like oh, he's in the waiting room. Oh, I hope he hasn't been waiting there.
the bike path in Fall River on the new bridge,
Yes,
that doesn't connect to a trail?
I think it does, but I also think it ends in Somerset.
I think it's like not continuous the whole way through, but I think there is like a goal for this continuous Taunton
Yes.
River Trail, and some of it is like off-road things like that. Some of it goes along 138, but it's not like a formal
Right,
thing. And so there are some interruptions, but I think there is a part of it that goes through Dayton that is in the process of being connected to Somerset and to
Well,
Taunton, right? Or there's a goal
that
to-
connection is really still up in the air. And then there's also a little problem with the Dayton Taunton side because of business, Princess House. So that's more of an issue of money than, the problem with Somerset and Dayton is a legal issue.
Mhm.
It's been pretty intense
Hmm.
over 7 years at least. There is a family that owns a piece of land that we need to connect the trail.
Hmm.
And they don't want to
I
sell.
don't want-
So do you go for eminent domain? I don't know.
Looks like Jonathan's having difficulty connecting to the audio.
How much of how large of a landmass are we talking about for an eminent domain purchase?
It's not a big, no, it's not a big piece of land. I'm not exactly sure the acreage, but it's not a lot of,
Perfectly farmed.
Yep.
Should be cheap.
oh, yes,
you know?
no, yes. It's just,
You hate to force
It would
it.
be a rotten way to.
No, exactly.
Get
You
it,
hate to
though.
force it that way.
Right,
I
eminent
agree,
domains.
but-
And honestly, it's not exactly a priority to take someone's land like that for that kind of use. you know?
right.
Would that be?
I mean, that being said, I've hiked parts of the Appalachian Trail that went right through people's yards.
Really?
Yeah, where you connect through,
long-term-
and people were fine with it.
Oh, wow.
Found myself walking through fields that were clearly some farmers, and they were fine. There were signs and everything. I mean, obviously, that would be up to them, but.
Danica, one of the, was there more on this?
Only if others have other comments.
I know it's not on the agenda. But I also know how difficult it can be to get things on the DOS agenda. And I understand that the open meeting law does have a provision to discuss business unanticipated. We have an unanticipated business. We have an individual here this evening. I don't know if all of you have had a chance to look at his application. Ken Fournette is present with us this evening. He has been a resident of Dayton for how long?
33 years.
33 years, so he knows the community well. He's also an attorney for the town of Fall River. The city of Fall River.
Right.
In light of the fact that we are trying to develop a trust, I see Mr. Fournette's involvement with this committee as being huge. And just for the record, I didn't know Mr. Fournette until this evening, but I did look at his application. I'm very impressed. And we have some discussions coming up that involve legal interpretation of whether it be grants or bylaws or creating the trust, which is so huge. Dayton is strapped for money.
Mhm.
And having that trust and the ability to purchase land allows the town to control growth and also allows the town the opportunity to meet some of the needs that may not be a priority when you're looking at dollars and cents. It's too expensive, it's not that important. But if we have the ability through the grant process or lands that are entrusted to us, we might be able to get creative. You know, I think of a piece of land that on William Street, former farm, and the individual came to us looking, to deed it to the town. We couldn't afford it, so it didn't become a priority.
The old Reed Brothers?
Pardon?
The old Reed Brothers property?
No.
Oh, okay, it's a different plot.
Yes, I'd rather not mention names, but there's the Reed property. There is a potential use for that. A very needed use. But this is not the place to talk about that. So with that being said, I don't know if this body would okay accepting my motion to conduct an interview and vote on the candidacy of Ken Fournette for the vacancy that currently exists on the board. That would be the 5th member.
I'd be happy to conduct the interview. I'm not sure we want to vote without Jonathan. I'd feel a little
Okay.
odd there, but I'd love to learn more about you.
Sure. John makes it back on.
I asked him if I could just have him call in. Would that be allowed if I call him and we could have him at
Yes. Oh, yes.
audio?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Let me try to call him. He didn't respond to my text. I tried calling him and the call ended. It's like not even connecting to him. Maybe he lost service or something.
So there's been an issue all day with Verizon service.
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah, it's been reported.
Oh,
My telephone was on SOS, not able to hook up to Wi-Fi.
oh, I didn't even notice that. So he texted me back. He said there's a problem with the Wi-Fi and the whole Verizon system is down for calling in or out.
Oh, wow, so kind of a call.
We may have to continue. Give me one more minute. But yeah, in response to your motion, I wouldn't want to vote without
okay.
Jonathan.
Okay.
I don't want to delay getting you on the committee like another month, but it wouldn't feel right to
How many
vote.
weeks out is the next meeting? Is it only 2 or 3?
2 or 3.
It's like 3
Just
weeks.
to the February 4th, not too far.
But it has to go before. He's not an official member until the
Right,
Board of
right.
Selectmen.
And
And
when's that next meeting?
their meeting, they met tonight, so I'm not sure if they're meeting
Might be-
1-3 or 2-4.
What if we had a special meeting, just to vote? Prior to the, if the Board of Selectmen meetings.
We could do that. Jonathan would have to talk to Peter.
Yeah.
We could do that.
Could we ask to get him, put it on the select board agenda pending our vote
Sure.
next meeting? Because I don't think anyone is going to have any objections, but rather than waiting till making that decision to then ask to be put on the selectmen's agenda, we could tee it up so that whatever meeting is right after our next meeting, whatever select board meeting is right after our next meeting, he's already on the agenda,
Sure.
assuming we vote to appoint or vote
Right.
to recommend him
Okay.
at our next meeting. What other items do we have tonight that we didn't get to? Okay. Cleanup Day Subcommittee and Land Trust Development Planning are the only 2 items left on the agenda, and Jonathan addressed those in his address anyway.
Right.
So I
Can we set
said,
a date for the cleanup?
I think we're talking Earth Day. I don't know if that.
we proposed, last time we proposed tentative dates around
Yeah,
Earth Day,
yeah.
and he was gonna confirm them.
Oh, okay.
I don't
ask a
know if we did.
question on that from the audience? So I was very involved with scouting while raising 3 children. One was a boy. Ben became an Eagle Scout through Troop 3.
Nice.
And I got to do the program with him. I was an assistant counselor with the troop. There are rankings in scouting. Everybody knows about Eagle Project, but in fact, both the Star and Life Scouts also have project requirements, and the cleanups are just huge. And I was curious. My question was going to be, if you know, how much the Boy Scout troops in the area have been a part of open space as far as like coordinating. That's something I really would enjoy doing, given my
Time.
involvement.
That would be huge. Timing, when we were going to have it, didn't work with, you know, we were going to originally do it in the fall, and they do a lot of camping,
Yes,
so.
but there's always that boy who needs the project for his rank advancement. And we've done, I live on Smith Street, but William, Smith, Horton, Wellington, those are streets that benefited from boys showing. It's the easiest project to undertake. An immediate benefit is so obvious, we don't even have to speak about that. But that is something, I'd be very interested in reaching out. I think our troop merged, so there's only a single
Right.
troop
that's what I
now in
heard.
Dayton. Is that what's going on?
That's
Yeah,
what I heard.
That's sad.
What was the group that you mentioned? You're talking about Boy Scouts?
Boy
right now?
Scouts. Yep.
Okay, was there another group that you mentioned?
Well, it was Troop 3 and Troop
Stars?
45.
Oh, are they
Yeah,
just troops
there
of
were
the?
different troops in town. At one time, we could support 2 troops in town, but the numbers got very, very low, and I'm not surprised they may have merged.
I think Jonathan did reach out to them for the cleanup that we were planning. I think,
Girl Scouts too.
I think so, yeah. I think he reached out to both of them when we originally planned one last year, but we didn't get very good turnout. But I believe he had reached out to them.
Who survived, 45 or 3?
I think 45.
They've been around for a long.
They're the ones in the church there off of Center Street.
Yes.
Yeah, we were up at Saint.
I was a member of that troop.
Oh yeah, good for you.
Jeff Alley. Jeff Alley was the
Scouting was
scout.
awesome. It's sad how when I went to high school in the 70s, 80s, a lot of kids in my class in scouting, but
Same.
for my son who graduated DR in 2018, it was very, very, very small, only a few boys.
We had a similar situation, not scouting, but Little League. I was in Little League as a kid in the town of Randolph, where I grew up.
Oh, sure.
2 leagues, because there were so many kids,
Yeah,
north and south. And I have 3 boys, and when we were there playing, I was coaching, and they were down to 3 teams in the entire town.
Taunton has issues.
Really?
Taunton is different. Taunton, like my town, I
That's
grew up in
surprising.
Connecticut, they're confronted with lacrosse, taking boys.
Wow.
My town I grew up in, when you're in 6th grade, you make that decision, you either pick up a lacrosse stick and most do. And that's, I know Taunton, somebody who's affiliated with the Taunton Little Leagues have told me they're having trouble. Like that one or 2 teams in the Babe, when you finally get to Babe Ruth,
Right.
they can't field. You know, they just have, Fall River's still pretty good, I'll say that. Fall River still gets their baseball players out, but, yeah.
Okay, so
Anyways, sorry.
yeah, sorry, I'm just gonna rein this back in. And I guess I will take over chair duties. Bear with me, I'm not very good at this. But can we get a motion then to table the conservation subdivision topics? And I guess, I mean, the 2 other items that we didn't get to, do we need a motion to table both of those? to
Yes,
the-
we would.
All of those? to
If they're on the
next
agenda, we would.
meeting? So can someone,
Well, we're gonna take them separately, you wanna do them all together?
can we do them all together? Or we could do the one that was in progress first, so.
Okay,
So the conservation subdivision discussion, take a pause, given we lost one of our members, and table it to last meeting?
Did we get as far as agreeing or even voting on the 20% being changed to 50?
Oh,
Did that, right? We did get a vote off.
I think so.
Yes, I put that, the motion passed unanimously.
Okay.
I think it was right after that we lost Jonathan.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay,
so I'd make a motion that the rest of the conversation, discussion on the conservation subdivision be tabled until our next meeting.
Second?
okay. And then I don't have to do roll call because we don't have him on Zoom
Correct.
anymore? Okay, so any discussion? All in favor or?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, and then similarly, can I get a motion to table the next two items of the agenda being the cleanup day subcommittee update and land trust development planning?
I'd like to make a motion to table the discussion on land trust development and cleanup day report until the February 4th meeting.
I second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the next item being new business, which we did kind of start discussing, the appointment, yes, of Mr. Fournette. And I get a motion that we will put that on the agenda for next meeting, but in the meantime, ask our chairman to not wait to put it on the next select board agenda. That's after our next meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
so moved.
Second.
Sorry, give me a minute to just catch up with my notes.
I do have a question regarding that.
Okay.
Was there a closing date on those applications?
I don't think so. I think it's just open until they're filled. But once, if we were to appoint you, then we would have that would be all 5 of our spots.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall ever hearing any deadlines or dates involved when I was in
Yeah.
the process. Is there something you were thinking or remember?
Yes.
Care to share or?
Not at this time.
Okay, any discussion on that motion?
Only that if it's advantageous to furthering it and getting it done quickly, I would certainly be open to a special meeting to vote on it if we found that necessary.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. We can leave that up to Jonathan, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then next, I believe another opportunity for public input. Anything, Mark, online, you haven't had an opportunity to weigh in? So,
He's muted.
yeah. Here's a new message. I'm all set, thanks. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
anything else? Yeah. Okay, then minutes, I'm gonna suggest we table the minutes to next meeting, since we don't have everyone here.
Is that the minutes from last meeting?
It's 2 meetings, because the last meeting, when we met in December, you were not with us. We didn't approve the November minutes because you weren't here.
Oh, okay.
So we have the November minutes, the December minutes.
November and December.
Let's table that to next meeting in addition to
So
tonight's.
moved.
Okay,
Second.
any discussion?
Yes, he said. Glenn seconded.
Okay, no, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move?
Seconded?
Okay, at 7:34 PM, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
End the meeting. Good night, Mark.
Good night.
It's going to make for a very long meeting.